Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Baruch Shechianu v'kiyamanu v'giyanu lazman hazeh, to start the Torah anew for the Shnas Tavshin Pei Dalid, and we ask Hashem to give us the segula of Hamaschil b'mitzvah Imrim Lo Ligmar, that as we start learning Chumash Braishis, we should be zeicha to finish the Torah with gesund many times over. We're broadcasting here from our flagship station at the Agudas Yisrael Beis Zev of Fairways Lakewood, and we first thank TorahAnytime.com for its global platform in 187 countries to spread Torah to the awesome Habatzis Torah of Kol HaLashon, our new platform, YouTube, Facebook, Torah Communications Network, and of course our digital subscribers, our Zoomers. Welcome everyone as we learn Torah with the help of Hashem. Tonight we have two very special sponsors, again both from my inner circle of Talmidim. The first sponsor, in order of how it was received, the first sponsor is Nachman Chapler and his family, Le'ili Nishmas, his father, on his yahrzeit. His yahrzeit is the first day of Rosh Chodesh Cheshvan, Rav Tzvi Hirsch, ben Reb Elyo Yecheskel. His neshama should have an aliyah. Lichtige Gan Eden, he should be a Meltz Yosher for his family, for all of us, and all of Klal Yisrael. Our second is also a dear Talmud of mine who chooses to be anonymous, and he's doing it L'Zeicher Nishmas Chaim Zanvil ben Moshe, Moshe ben Shmuel, Levi Yitzchak ben Meir, the Refuah Shalema for Elio Moshe ben Chayes Sarah, and for the schus of Avram Beinish ben Malki Yehudis and his family, that they should all have atzlacha. The support of this share is through these sponsorships, and if you would like to be a sponsor, we don't have one for Noah. The way to sponsor, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on Torah Anytime, on Kol HaLashon, the way to be a sponsor is to text 718-916-3100 or to email rmmwsi, Rabbi Moshe Meir Weiss, Staten Island, at AOL.com. I say this, I believe, every time I start Braishis. I've been teaching now Braishis for 40 years with the help of Hashem, and it always amazes me that I start learning, and in a short while, I find things that I've never known. It's really, it just makes you aware of Ein Cheker L'Svunasai. There's no boundaries to the understanding of Torah. It's infinite. In the Siach Sarfei Kodesh, this is something that the Welt knows. They always say it. People realize, especially if they're not well, that Braishis bara. The first thing is brius. The first thing is gesund. You have to have gesund first. But Lamaisa is the trio of what we aspire for is Bonai, Chaye, and Mezoni. Children, life, gesund, and a livelihood, sustenance. And the Siach Sarfei Kodesh says that that's all merumas in Braishis bara. Because the word bara is a bar, like bar mitzvah, a son. It's burias, it's health. And bar is also grain. It's sustenance. So that's all in Braishis bara. But what knocked my socks off is that the word bara, bigematria, and it's an often a gematria. The word bara in gematria is 303. That's very simple. Beis is 2, Reish is excuse me. The word bara, I said 3. The word bara is 203. Right? Beis is 2, Reish is 200, and Aleph is 1. It's 203. It's amazing that Bonai, Chaye, and Mezayni is exactly 203. Braishis bar. That's the first thing. Bonai, Chaye, and Mezayni. Bonai, Chaye, and Mezayni. Bonai is 62, Chaye is 28, and Mezayni is 113. It's exactly 203. And I think that there's a tremendous lesson in this. Because remember, Braishis, we know, is Bishvil Torah Shenikra Reishis Darkei. Braishis always alludes to Torah. We're going to talk more about that soon. But Rashi says, the first Rashi, Braishis Bishvil Torah, the world was created because of Torah, which is Reishis Darkei. It's the schus of Torah that promises Banai Chayim Mezayni. Of course, Torah promises gesund. People want to know, that's one thing that you can't buy. You can't buy. The richest people, they die young. All their wealth can't buy them health. But Torah buys health. It's a pasuk. Rifa sila sharecha ulechol b'sarai marpe. It brings health to your navel and healing to all flesh. That's Torah. Torah brings health. It has to be Torah Lishma. That's what Rameya says. Kol alaymed Torah Lishma zaychel advarim harba. And the Mishnah says this pasuk of Rifasi l'sharecha l'chol b'sar mapi. So half a person has to learn Torah, having in mind to be mekayim the mitzvah of a dibar tabam. But then that promises brius. Of course, Torah promises mezainis. That's what it says. Im ein Torah ein kemach. If there's no Torah, there's no kemach. And Torah is the way to get children. It's like we said. It says in the Haggadah, Kan haben shoyel. Here is where you want to ask for a son before manishtana. Because what do you want to have a child for? To be mekayim v'shinantam levanecha. So Torah brings children too. So that's the connection between Braishis, bara. I want to point out something else also. And that is that in the Jewish phrase of accomplishment, Banai Chaye Mezayne, it's interesting that we put a child together with gesund and together with making ends meet. There are people that they don't feel that a child is, of course, the ones that don't have it, they want the child. But those that have children, okay, yeah, I have children, but I look at this house, look at my car, look at my job, look at my promotion, look at my corner office. I remember I had them at my shul, they should all be gesund, I had in my shul, in Staten Island, a wonderful family, the Neuwirth family. And they used to live on the route that Rav Miller took on his walk. And they were sitting out on the stoop with their 8 children. And Rav Miller passed by them, took a look at them, and said, I hope you realize that you're multi-millionaires. That's children. Children are, we say in Haggadah, V'esamaleinu elu abanim. All our toil in life, that's for children. Now I want to talk to you about a balaturim. Now I've spoken about this partially already, but I want to elaborate on it, and I want to make it something that we make one of our focuses every day. So Braishis bara Elikim esa shemayim ve'esa aretz is 7 words and 28 letters. You could check, you could trust me, I check these things. But Braishis bara Elikim esa shemayim ve'esa aretz is 7 words and 28 letters. Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevarach L'Olam L'Olmei Olmaya is 7 words and 28 letters. Vayedaber Elikim es Kol Advarim Ha'ela Lemar, the introductory pasuk to the Aseres HaDibros, is 7 words and 28 letters. Says the Balaturim, someone that says Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevarach L'Olam L'Olmei Almaya with all kavana becomes a shutav to Hashem in the creation of the world, and it's as if he got the Torah from Sinai. Now, I want to explain to you a theme about what's so special about Braishis. Many of the early giants explained to us that the most important concepts Hashem put in the beginning of the Torah, if it's mentioned early on in the Torah, it's of great urgency in successful living. So in the word Braishis are many things that are encoded. One of the things that's encoded in the word Braishis is Amen Yehei Shmei Rabba Bakol Tefillah. That's what Braishis stands for. Amen Yehei Shmei Rabba Bakol Tefillah. Right? The Aleph of Braishis is Amen. The Yud of Braishis is Yehei. The Shin is Shmei. The Reish is Rabba, the Beis is Bakol, and the Tuf is Tefillah. Amen Yehei Shmei Rabba Bakol Tefillah. Now, if Hashem put that in the first word of the Torah, He's telling you how important that is in our purpose in being down in this world. Just like Braishis is Torah, Kilakach Noitzarto, we're going to talk about that. There is no more powerful 7 words that a person could utter during their lifetime. Think about the power. Think about the power of these words. The Gemara tells us in Masechta Shabbos, Daf Kuf Yud Tes Amud Beis, Kol ha'oina amen yesh me'rabba b'kol koichai, Kairin like Gzar Din Shel Shivim Shana. There's torn up a decree of 70 years. Now, a decree of 70 years, that means this person is 80 years old. And when he was 80 years old, when he was, let's say he was 85, when he was bar mitzvah, he did a terrible thing. Terrible, whatever it was, a terrible thing. And he has hanging over him a gezerah of 70 years. With these words, Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevarach L'Olam L'Olmei Almaya, a person could tear a decree of 70 years. It's amazing. Now I want to develop. You've all heard me talk about the importance of Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. You heard me quote the Mishnah Brura, who brings down from the Sefer HaKana that Hashem doesn't have any greater pleasure in the world than when His children lift up their eyes and say Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. That's a Mishnah Brura. You heard me quote it. Yet if you look in the Shulchan Aruch Harav, the Shulchan Aruch Harav writes that the Kedusha of Kaddish is greater than the Kedusha of Kaddish, Kaddish, Kaddish. I'm going to tell you a very interesting thing. It's a very interesting thing. The Tur asks why Kaddish is in Aramaic. There's different opinions why Kaddish is in Aramaic. One opinion is that the Amaratzim that don't understand Hebrew and their vernacular in the olden days was Aramaic, that it's such an important prayer that they should understand it. There's a El Yerabah who says that the Goyim knew how effective Amen Yeshmei Rabbah was, so they decreed that it shouldn't be said. And therefore the El Yerabah brings down, they converted it to Aramaic in order that they should still be able to say it. But the Tur gives a different answer. The Tur says that Amen Yeshmei Rabbah is in Aramaic because the angels don't understand Aramaic, and we don't want them to be jealous of us. And therefore we say it in Aramaic. So I want you to listen to this because it's so fascinating. There's a Sefer Or L'Yesharim. The Sefer Or L'Yesharim says that Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mavarach La'olam Alomei Almaya is the Targum of Baruch Shem Kvoid Malchusay La'olam Vod. Isn't that interesting? Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mavarach La'olam Alomei Almaya is the translation of Baruch Shem Kvoid Malchusay La'olam Vod. Oh, all of a sudden now we understand why we don't want the angels to be jealous. It's interesting that Kaddish, 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 we say out loud. There we give credit to the angels. In Nusach Ashkenaz, we say, Nekadish Shimcha Ba'olam, Kishem Shemakdishim Haisei B'Shmei Marayim, like they do it in heaven. In Svard, we say, Nakdishach V'naritzach, Kinoyam Siach Soid Sarfei Kodesh, the way the holy seraphim say it. But here we say it in Aramaic, because we know, except on Yom Kippur, we don't want the angels to know that we purloined this secret. So the same way we know that Baruch Shem Kvoid is such a lofty thing, and we only belt it out on Yom Kippur, that's Yehei Shmei Baruch Shem Kvoid Malchusay. Blessed is the name of your glorious kingdom, La'olam Vod. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach, may your great name be blessed. La'olam Ul'olmei Almaya. So we see here that the words La'olam Ul'olmei Almaya mean forever. Now, first of all, I want to suggest that even though it's Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach La'olam Ul'olmei Almaya, the skula that it's considered like we're a shutuf in the creation of the world, and that it's considered that we got the Torah from Sinai, doesn't contain the Amen. The Amen is a different thought. The Amen is that Yiskadol v'Yiskadol Shmei Rabbah, that should become the time of Gog and Magog, and Hiskadilti v'Hiskadishti v'Na'aditi Beino Amim, that time should come, B'chayechayin v'Yomeichayin, that's the Amen. And now comes the statement. And in order to make this a mission for life, we have to think about it. Otherwise, we'll go through our life saying it and even screaming it. Because it says, it's brought down, that if you say it b'kol koichai, now Rashi learns b'kol koichai means b'kol kavanasai, with all your concentration. But Tosfos says b'kol koichai means to say it out loud. Not that, the Mefarshim say, not that people should make fun of you, that they should be mitzloites, but it means to say it out loud, because Tosfos says if you say it out loud, if you say it out loud, it's mevatel gezeiros. It cancels decrees. if you look, you'll see that the Shulchan Aruch Harav says that saying it loud silences the mekatrigim. So what do we have in mind when we say Yehi Shmei Rabba Mavarach La'olam Olol Me'omaya? So first thing is we're blessing Hashem forever and ever. Now we know that we're going to sing Shira to Hashem in the future. It says Tzadikim Ya'ishvim V'Atrisayim B'Rashayim V'Nenim V'Ziv Hashchana. We're going to sing Hashem's praises. However, like Rav Miller said, why do we thank Hashem now for Tchiyas HaMeisim? Baruch Atah Hashem Mechaya HaMeisim. Why do we thank? Well, I understand where we say V'Neman Atah. But why do we thank Hashem for Tchiyas HaMeisim? We're not dead yet. Mirtz Hashem, when we're resurrected, we'll thank Hashem. They say that the bracha that will thank Hashem is Bari Nefashis. Bari Nefashis. That's the thank you to Hashem. Bari Nefashis, Rabbis, V'chazrayna. But why do we have to thank Hashem now? So Rav Miller says, because then we won't have Bechira. We won't have free will. So it's much better to do it now when we have free will. Right? So now we thank Hashem. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mavarach La'olam Olol Me'omaya. We're going to bless you forever and ever. But now we're doing it with Bechira. But we know that Mavarach doesn't only mean we bless Hashem. We also know it means that Hashem is a source of blessing. And therefore, Yehi Shmei Rabba becomes a affirmation that we believe in the afterlife. And Hashem is going to give us blessing forever and ever. And that's a great statement. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mivarach. Your great name is a source of blessing. La'olam Olol Me'omaya. Hashem, you're going to give us infinite blessing forever and ever. And that's an affirmation of Olam Haba. That's a great thing. The Sefer HaCharedim says that when a person answers Yehi Shmei Rabba and causes, he says, is Mezian Kol Gufay. He does it with his whole body, which means Kol Atzmaisei Tamarna Hashem Michamaycha. He puts himself entirely in. I'm not saying we should do this all the time, but at least once a day, then Meichlin Avinoisav, it forgives their sins. It's an amazing thing. It's interesting that the Beis Yosef says that these 28 words are hinted to, the 28 letters are hinted to in Koyach Maisav Higid Lamai. Koyach is 28. His actions that he's going to give us Olam Haba forever and ever. Higid Lamai. We tell his nations. Now let's get back to Braishis. Rashi says that Braishis is Torah. For its Torah is called Reishis Darkai, the first of his way. The Balaturim says that Braishis is two words. Bara Shtei. Right? Braishis, if you juggle around the Shin Yud Saf, it becomes Shtei. Bara Shtei. He created two things. What are the two things? Torah Shebiksav and Torah Shebal Peh. The written law, Tanakh, and the Talmud. And then he says, what else is Bara Shtei? Olam Nivra Bishvil Torah V'Loim Deha. The world was created for Torah and those that learn it. Braishis stands for Berishayna Ra Elikim Sheyakablu Yisrael Torah. That's why he created the world. Because Berishayna Ra Elikim Sheyakablu Yisrael Torah. Braishis is Begematria 913. And therefore, it's the same Gematria as B'Torah Yotzar. B'Torah is 613 and Yotzar is 300. That's 913. Now, the simple understanding of Braishis is b'Torah Yotza, b'Gematria Torah Yotza, because it says in the Zohar, Istakel Baraisa Baralma. Hashem looked in the Torah and created the world. That's why Braishis is b'Torah Yotza. He created, right? That's why he made genetics, so that we should be able to understand our children and fulfill Chanoich L'nar Al Pi Darkai. Right? So Braishis, but Braishis bit Torah Yotzer means for the Torah he created the world. That's why the world was created. Now, also Braishis is Bris Eish, a covenant of fire. The Torah is a covenant of fire. First of all, fire makes things clear. The world is dark. If we live with the Torah, it clarifies how we should live. It's also, people of Torah have to be warm. All the Gedolim that I knew, they were men of such warmth. Reb Yaakov, Reb Moshe, Reb Shlomo Mebabov, they were all such warm people. And also, it's the reason bris, it's a covenant, because im loy brisi, yomam v'layla, if not for the Torah, chukah shemayim v'aretz lo samti, the world wouldn't exist. Now, why is all of this important? Why is it important to know that the world was created for Torah? Was created Barashtei for Torah and its Londea. It's created for Barashtei, for Torah Shebiksav and Torah Shebal Peh. Why is this? Why is it important to know that Braishis Bara Elikim is Begematria exactly the Pera Aaron Hashem Yinkim Dama Yizech Tzad V'Kosh Bracha Skusi Yagin Laleinu, that Braishis Bara Elikim is exactly Begematria Torah Neviim Ksuvim. Neviim spelt with 2 yuds is exactly Torah Neviim Ksuvim. Why is this important? It's important to know. People are always looking for fulfillment, especially when people are getting older and they're asking what to do with their life and what's the meaning of their life. We were put on this world for Torah. That's the purpose we were. Braishis b'shvil Torah. That's the meaning of the Mishnah. Im lomaneta Torah haba al tazik Torah la'atzmcha ki lekach noitzarta. You were created for Torah. When a person knows that they're doing that which they were created for, it's a simcha. And by the way, we know that the Rebbeinu Shalom wants us to be happy. We know that. We know that's why he made flowers. That's why he made good smells. That's why he made hundreds of types of apples. That's why he made so many different subtle tastes in nuts. That's why he made a delicious piece of meat. That's why he gave us the joy of a woman. The Rebbeinu Shalom wants us to be happy. And what does he tell us to do? V'agisa b'yomim v'layla. So that means that there's no greater happiness than Torah. Ein simcha ke simcha satayr. And therefore, we said that it puts the most important things in the beginning of the Torah. The most important thing for a person to do is Torah. Now, the word Braishis is also the same letters as Toriv Eish, to fight with fire. To contend with fire. The Yetzer Hara is a fire. We know this. The Gemara tells us that Rav Amram Chasida, they once left by him 3 beautiful hostages. And he put them up in an attic, and they removed the ladder, which needed 4 people to carry the ladder. And even though it needed 4 people to carry the ladder, in the middle of the night, Rav Amram saw the shine of these beautiful women, and he picked up the ladder and by himself moved it to climb to go up to the women. They were so seductive. On the way up, he yelled, "Fire!" And people came, and they caught him. And they said, "We're embarrassed." He said, better to be embarrassed in this world than in the next world. And there came out of him the Yetzer Hara like an amuda denura, like a fire. Yetzer Hara is a fire. Braishis is toriv eish, because Braishis is the Torah, Barashtei, Braishis b'shvil Torah, and that's the way to fight the Yetzer Hara. The way to fight the fire of the Yetzer Hara is through Torah. That's the way. That's the only way. You'll say, what do you mean? There's a lot of strategies. No. The Rebbeinu Shalom said, Barasi Yetzer Hara, Barasi Torah Tavnullah. I created Barasi Yetzer Hara. And I'm telling you, Torah Tavnullah. One of the reasons why a person should spend a lot of time learning Torah is because this is a world full of temptation, full of fights, and Torah is the antidote. That's why Braishis is Toriv Eish. It's the way. Now Braishis also, tell you an interesting thing, Braishis is also Braishis is also Barasa Shai. You created the 310 worlds. Because a person that keeps the Torah will get Shai Olamas. That's the last Mishnah in Shas. Now we know Braishis Bara Likim is Seif Tevis Emes. Right? Braishis is a Saf, Bara is an Aleph, and a Likim is Mem, is Emes. Emes itself, Emes is Torah. Like it says in the Pasuk, Emes Kenei Va'al Timker, that's why it's called Torah's Emes. Emes stands for Oraisa Mishnah Talmud. Those occupations, learning Chumash, being Mavis Sedra, learning Mishnayos, learning Talmud, that's the occupation of life. If a person does that, they know that they have a life that's worth living. It's a great happiness. Now the last word in the Torah, the letter in the Torah is Leinei Kol Yisrael, and the first letter is Beis. It ends with Lamed, and it starts with Beis. So when you put it, we know that we darshan Smuchim, as the pasuk says, Smuchim la'ad ula'omei elamim. So when we put the Lamed, the last letter, together with the Beis, the first letter, it's Leiv. Because Rachmana Libabai, the Rebbeinu Shalom wants from us heart. Lasid Lavai, Hashem is going to take a Sefer Torah in his lap and say, whoever engaged in it, come and get your schar. So the Gemara tells us in Avodah Zarah that the Goyim will come. And the Goyim will say, we built the Gathels and the Verrazano. And that's how all the Bachrim got to Lakewood to learn. And we made buses. And that's how all the yeshiva boys got to the Cheder. And we made bathhouses so that everybody should be able to rejuvenate themselves. And the Rebbeinu Shalom will tell him, you didn't do it for that reason. You did it to make money, to collect tolls. You did it to make a living. We see that the right heart is very important. Rachmana Libabai. Now, that's why Leiv, Lamed Beis, stands for Libabai. It also stands for Livtoyach Ba'Hashem, but it also stands Laharzer B'tshuva. That's a Sefer Oitzer. Says Lamed Beis. It's really interesting. Says Lamed Beis stands for Laharzer B'tshuva. That's the Lamed Beis. Because the purpose of our life is to change. We've all made many mistakes in our life. The success of life is how we change. How we change in the way we handle our money, how we change in the way we handle our temper, how we change in the way we handle our marriage, how we change in the way we handle our eyes. And that's the purpose of life. Remember, I told you that the Gemara Menachos says, Ki b'ka Hashem tzur olamim, with the hay Hashem created this world. And the Gemara says the hay is open at the bottom because if you don't hold on, you're going to fall to the abyss. And the Gemara says, so why is there a crack in the hay on the left side, that if you fall down, you could come through the crack? So the Gemara says, why can't you come from where you fell? So the Gemara says, lo yistayim ilsa. If you do it the same way, you won't succeed. You have to come a different way. But we see that the letter that the world was created carries a lesson of coming back, of getting back through the crack, of doing tshuva. That's the purpose of life. The purpose of life is how much we, in our life, are able to change. We know that the Chachmas Hanister is the deepest level of Chachma. So the Sefer HaOtzar says Braishis stands for Or Toras Rab Shimon Bar Yochai. Let's move on. V'ruach Elikim merachefes al pnei hamayim. And the Spirit of Hashem hovers over the water. Now that's a pasuk. We say, we've translated it. We translate it in Cheder. We learned v'ruach Elikim merachefes al pnei hamayim. But what does it mean that the Spirit of God is hovering over the water? So first of all, merachefes is the same letters as a rachem pas. Merachefes is a rachem pas, mercy of bread. Because you have to know that the Gemara tells us, Ein ha'olam miskayim b'loi ruchais. The world can't exist without wind. You see, it's the wind that brings the clouds to where you need rain. That's how, if the clouds wouldn't be brought, we're used to living in a place where food is trucked all over the place. But throughout the centuries, if it didn't rain, people died. If there was a drought in a certain place for a long time, there was no food. The wind brings the clouds to where they're needed. That's the meaning. It's good to talk about it, that we should remember to say it every day. That's the meaning of Ma'ashiv Ruach U'Morid HaGoshem. He causes the wind to blow, and that causes the rain to come down. The thanking of Hashem for rain is a magnificent act of kindness, that every time it rains, tens of thousands of creatures lift up their mouths and are given life. And that's why it says, Ma'ashiv Ruach U'Morid HaGoshem, Mechalkel Chayim B'Chesed. He sustains life with kindness. But if you look in the Medrash says, V'ruach Elikim merachefes, Zeh Ruach Shel Mashiach. That's the Ruach of Mashiach. And if you look in the Balaturim brings down a gematria, that Ruach Elikim merachefes is gematria of words that this is the Ruach of Mashiach. I'm not quoting it because when I checked it, the gematria was not exact, so I since I didn't come up with a pshat in how it works, I didn't quote it, but the Balaturim is reliable. And he says, Ruach Elikim merachefes is the Ruach of Mashiach. Now it's brought down in the Zohar HaChodesh that Mashiach will come b'schus Moshe Rabbeinu. And that Moshe Rabbeinu will demand Torah. And that's pshat v'ruach Elikim merachefes al pnei hamoyim. Because ein mayim ala Torah. The Ruach of Mashiach is going to come because of our Torah. That's a very good thing to know, because that means that when we learn Torah, we could attach it to the fact that we're helping to bring the Mashiach. People think, what do you have to do to help to bring the Mashiach? Learning Torah, that's the Ruach Elikim Merachefes, that's the Ruach Mashiach, Al Pnei Amoyim. It comes because of Torah. Eimayim ala Torah. That's a Ferish Zayir Chodesh. Now we know that the 6 days of creation, it says Vayer Vayivoker, but on Shabbos it doesn't say Vayer Vayivoker Yom HaShvi. Now I always explained why, because in Gan Eden, when Adam was in Gan Eden, there was no darkness in Gan Eden. That's what it says, that the 36 lights of Hanukkah, if you add them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, it's 36. The 36, the Rekeach says, represents the 36 hours that Adam and Chava enjoyed the Aragonas, the hidden light, before they were, and therefore it doesn't say Vayer Vayivoker on Shabbos, because there was no Erev. But the Klei Yakar says it doesn't say it because there's no Vayer Vayivoker ever on Shabbos. What does that mean? Very interesting Klei Yakar. The Klei Yakar says that Erev is a time of rest and Boker is a time to work. That's true during the 6 days of the week. But on Shabbos, Shabbos is physically all rest and spiritually all work. So there's no Erev and Boker on Shabbos. When it comes to physical, it's all rest. When it comes to learning, it's all work. And that's Pshat. Chida says, Asher Bora Elokim Lasos, that Hashem created the world to do, that we say in Kiddush, to do is learning Torah. Like it says, Vayava Yosef Elaboisa Lasos Malachtai. And the Medrash says, he came to learn. And that's why he was saved from the wife of Potiphar, because of his schus of his learning. So Asher Bora Elokim Lasos is learning. Now I'm going to tell you something that we really need to absorb. On the second day, B'Yom Sheni, it doesn't say Ki Tov. On the second day, it doesn't say Ki Tov. So, one reason in the Medrash is because Hashem created Gehenim on the second day. And the reason why he created Gehenim on the second day is because on the second day was introduced Machloikis. Because Hashem divided the upper waters and the lower waters. And since there was Machloikis on the second day, therefore it doesn't say Ki Tov. Because where there's Machloikis, it's not good. And because Machloikis was introduced on the second day, you needed Gehenim. Because Gehenim is needed for Bali Machloikis. By the way, that's why on the second day, the Yom that we say is Mizmor Shir Livnei Kairach, because the Bnei Kairach escaped the Machloikis of their father. Now, listen to the Lashon of the Medrash. This Medrash is very fascinating. The Medrash says that when Hashem separated the upper waters and the lower waters, and he made the rakia, what we call the firmament, the lower waters started crying. They started crying. Why did they start crying? They started crying and saying, why should we be left in such a tamei place as the earth, and we were kicked out from being in heaven? They started crying. So Hashem told them, Shasku, if you're quiet and you don't make him machloikis, so I'll give you Nisuch HaMayim. I'll give you the mitzvah of Nisach HaMayim. Ooh, Nisach HaMayim, Misha loy ra simchas beis ha'she'eva, loy ra simcha miyamav. I'll give you the delightful mitzvah of Nisach HaMayim. Says the Medrash, loy nispaisu. They weren't appeased. They said that's only once a year. You threw us down here in this Tamidika world. You sent us away from Shemayim, and you're giving us you're giving us an appeasement, Nisach HaMayim, which only happens on Sukkot. So Hashem said, you know what? There will be manufactured from your waters salt, and it'll be al kol karbancha takriv melech. From your water will have to be every day, multiple times a day. By every carbon there will have to be salt. That's the Medrash. The waters were appeased. If you study this Medrash, you learn a lot of things. The first thing is, it doesn't say kitayv, even though this was clearly a machlokes l'shem shemayim. It's clearly a machlokes l'shem shemayim. They didn't want to be down here with Tumah. They wanted to be close to the Rebbeinu Shalom. They want to be in Shemayim. Why should they have to be over here amongst sinners when they could be in Shemayim? So it's machlokes l'shem shemayim. Even a machlokes l'shem shemayim, it doesn't say kitayv. But there's a greater lesson from this Medrash. The Rebbeinu Shalom said, Shosku, if you're quiet, then I'll give you mitzvahs forever and ever. I'll give you a reward forever and ever. First you gave him Nisach HaMayim. Nisach HaMayim is heady stuff. You know how important it is when you have the tzdukim who wanted to deny it. You know how important it is. Then they said that's not enough, so he gave them l'dairei the mitzvah of melech on the karbanas. Now, by the way, just to point out, melech, mem lamed ches, is the same letters as locham, to fight. Because the whole salt is a reward for the fact that they didn't fight, that they were shosak. The lesson over here is that if a person will hold back from fighting, even for something, it's a worthy cause, but he'll say, you know what, it's not kedai to fight. It's not kedai to fight. So then a person will be rewarded forever. And we know this because we have the amazing Gemara, Toila Eretz al Blima. Toila Eretz al Blima literally means that if you look through a telescope, you see that the earth is hanging on nothing. You have to see it from pictures. But you look, the earth it's not on a pedestal. It's hanging on nothing. Earth is tons and tons. It's not hurtling anywhere. So Toila Eretz al Blima, on nothing. But the Gemara says there's a very important lesson from this pasuk. Eina oila miskayim ela b'mi sheboilim piv b'shas meriva. The world only survives on someone who shuts his mouth in a case of a fight. They are the Amudei Ha'olam. Peaceful people are the Amudei Ha'olam. It's an amazing thing. We also have a Gemara in Chulin. I've said this before, but it's worth repeating. Gemara in Chulin says, Ma nasai shel adam ba'olam hazeh. What's a person's profession? What's a person's career? So you'll say, what kind of a Gemara is that? Some people are dentists, some people are lawyers, some people are doctors, some people are shoemakers, some people are taxi drivers, Uber drivers, some people are housewives. Says the Gemara, no, everybody should have this profession. Yase atzmai ki'ilim. Make yourself like you're mute. That's a profession. It's a profession. A profession means that you got to practice it. How do you become a pro? You know how people become a pro at tennis? They have a certain amount of innate skill, but then they practice for 8 hours a day. Says the Gemara, you have to practice knowing to keep your mouth shut. And you see, the waters were quiet, they were rewarded forever. It's a tremendous lesson. And I also think that that's the meaning why we say Lo Sashbis Melech Bris, that they'll never seize the covenant of salt. Why is salt a covenant? Because it's because of the salt that there was peace between the upper waters and the lower waters. And I believe that that's why we dip the bread into the salt. The salt represents that there was shalom. When a person has bread, right? When there's bread and there's enough food in the house, then there's shalom. Salt represents that peace. Vayomer Elikim, Tatshe Oretz Deshe Esav. Let the earth produce herbs, Mazria Zera, each one producing a seed. Ramila said the seed is an amazing thing. Ramila used to carry seeds. He said it's an amazing thing. The seed, it's a coupon. Buy one, get a tree free. Right? You plant a seed, and from it comes a tree with fruit, with many seeds, for many, many years. It's an amazing thing, a seed. It's an amazing. But the pasuk says, Eitz Pri, a tree that produces fruit. So, but it says Eitz Pri, and Rashi tells us that the desire of Hashem was that the tam of the eitz should be the tam of the peri. That the taste of the tree should have the taste of the fruit. Now, all of the botany, all of the trees disobeyed, with the thought that if the tree would taste like the fruit, they would eat the tree and there would be nothing left. And there were only two that listened: the esrig and the palpalin, pepper. The Gemara tells us that the esrig was rewarded with the mitzvah of esrig, and the Tosfos HaSholem tells us that pepper was rewarded with tam Shabbos, that it's used to spice the food for Shabbos. You know what the great reward over here is? The great reward is when people don't go with the tide. You know what? Hashem says to do something, but many people can't stand up for what's right. They just go with the tide. When a person goes against the tide, they get rewarded. I'll give you an example. Somebody does in the shul something not nice to the Rav. It's clearly not nice to the Rav. But the silent majority is quiet. Mind my own business. And then somebody goes against the tide and stands up and says, Rabbi San, What's happening here? When a person goes against the tide, there's big reward. That's what we learned from over here. The esrig and the papalin, they went against the tide. Everybody, they produced fruit, but the tree didn't taste like the fruit. The esrig and the pepper, this is a lesson, again, in the beginning of the Torah. Remember what I said? That a lesson in the beginning of the Torah is very important. I reserved the final moments of the shir because it's impossible to have a shir with our brethren suffering so much in Eretz Yisrael without mentioning something about it. The first thing is we must, in our Shemona Esrei, when we say Sim Shalom, when we say Shalom Rav, we must, the Rabbeinu Shalom will not be happy if when we say Sim Shalom and Shalom Rav, we don't pray that peace should be restored. How peace will be restored? The Rebbeinu Shalom knows how to do it. Peace is not only that there shouldn't be any more missiles fired, that there shouldn't be infiltrators amongst us, that there shouldn't be people worried that they're not safe. Peace means peace of mind. That people should be able to go to sleep without being frightened, that every moment they're going to be woken to go to a bomb shelter. Or even worse, that people will burst in through their doors with machine guns. We have a bracha v'olam al shinim. In there, we're very graphic. Va'azedim, those that are willful. Now, these terrorists are willful. They're willful. They cut off the heads of children. They're willful. Va'azedim mehira sa'aker mehira. Quickly. There's not a minute to spare. Sa'aker, they should be uprooted. Sa'shaber, they should be broken. Sa'mager, they should be pulverized. Sa'shpilem, they should be brought low. V'sachniim, and humiliated b'mehira v'yameinu. We have to say this with all of our hearts. There should be no time that we break bread, that we say in benching, Rachem, and if you haven't Nusach Svad, Rachem no. No means please, no means now. Rachem no, Hashem Elokeinu al Yisrael Amecha v'al Yerushalayim Yirecha. How we have to daven. It's daven in Mariv Hashkiveinu Hashem Elokeinu l'shalom. That they should be able to go to sleep peacefully. They should be able to take their sleeping pills. V'amideinu malkeinu l'chayim, and everybody should be alive in the morning. No missiles should hit their mark. There's no question about it that our learning and our davening fuels the Iron Dome. People that are fighting deserve to have us praying for them. The Torah teaches us that when we fought with the Midianites, so it says, Elef Lamata, Elef Lamata. Why does it repeat? For the 1,000 that went to battle, they had 1,000 people designated to pray for them. Everybody should pray that the soldiers that are in harm's way, they should be safe. Person has the time, they should open up a tillim. You open up a tillim, and you have in your mind that you're protecting a tank. You're protecting a soldier in the trenches. Again, I want to thank everybody for joining us for the new cycle. It's to spread word that this share is available. It's also, of course, viewed live on TorahAnytime.com at 9 o'clock Thursday evening. If you would like to sponsor Parshas Noach, 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com. Thank you for joining us. Have a good night and a good Shabbos.